So everyone, today's video is going to be on a wired Cruiser controller install. I'm going to be switching out my old controller for a new one that I just got sent. I'm doing this because I have had some issues with the computer not necessarily registering my PAS levels correctly. However, after I've done this, I noticed that it wasn't the controller and it was my own just overseeing things, which is kind of a bummer, but at least I've got a new controller. I still went ahead and replaced the controller, and once I replaced it, the issue is still an issue, and I eventually went into the settings and I noticed that my throttle follow was not turned on, so that basically tells the bike that it needs, or it just basically when you're using your throttle, it doesn't listen to what PAS level you're on. It just, depending on wherever the throttle's at, will give you the amount of power. So I just wanted that kind of turned back on, because when I'm downtown, I certainly don't want to be going too fast. So here you can see I'm kind of taking out the batteries. I'm going to discharge the controller just to make sure there's no power to the bike before I undo this. So let's see. As you can see, I'm going to go ahead and turn it on after I've taken the batteries out, and you can see there's still going to be some juice that is left in the controller. And yeah, I'm recording the audio after because, as you can see, I've got my brother and a buddy of mine. I'm actually in his garage, and they were talking. We had a rather loud heater blowing, and it was just very tough to hear. So I'm just going to do the voiceover here. So now what you can see is I'm undoing the 3 screws that basically hold on this plate. Oh, he's being funny. 3 screws that hold on this plate, and then I can go ahead and take that off. And the next part will be removing the zip ties. I'm actually passing my brother the new screws that I'm going to put in because I had stripped one of those. Can't quite remember the size of them. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and cut those zip ties down where the motor cable comes out of the controller and hooks into the motor. And a couple other cables. And then I'll be able to go and pull the old controller out. So stay tuned, it may take me a minute. Super grateful to have access to this garage. The gentleman that's letting me use it is the guy that's talking right now with the brisk tea in his hands. You could see off to the side there, he's got a wind boat. He's a clammer, and he uses that to clam. He's done very well with it. So, been super happy with this bike. It was giving me some issues. You know, I thought that were electronic. Come to find out, it was my own doing. But it was giving me another issue where it felt like the hub or the motor was just spinning inside of the casing. So I wasn't getting any sort of movement in my rear wheel. And it would do it intermittently. It wasn't all the time. And what I kind of came to terms with last night after I did this was, you know, I believe it's a factor of it being out in the cold for a long period of time. The grease that's inside is not necessarily meant for the cold. And so it kind of, when it first happened, I heard this sort of thump noise, and you can kind of hear the motor kick in. And sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it doesn't. So I'm kind of just going to keep riding the bike. So far, it's been riding pretty well. Like I said, I've noticed it when I've left the bike outside in this, 30 below degree weather for long periods of time. It'll kind of give me that issue. And then what I noticed is once it kind of warms up, I do not have that issue throughout the day. And that's what leads me to believe it's, the grease. The other thing is that it could be a one-way bearing where the clutch is, and that could be, I guess, slowly going bad. However, I don't believe that's the case. I believe it's just a thick grease, and I think next winter, because I ride all winter, I think next winter I'm going to go ahead and just clean out the old grease, put in a more viscous type of grease, more for like a hot and cold, and then I'll give it a spin and see how it acts. So I don't believe it's the clutch. If you do need to get a new clutch from Wired, I believe it's $150. You get the pins and everything to basically repair that, which isn't too bad. The controller that I just had to get was $150. Come to find out, as I was saying, I don't need it, but it's nice because now I have it as a backup. These controllers go bad, I guess, sometimes. So it's always nice to have a backup. But yeah, so far so good. I've absolutely loved this bike. It feels awesome just riding around. It's got those 26x4 tires, so you feel really stable on the snow and, ice. These are aftermarket Vipress tires, I believe they're called, which have been working really well. As you can see in the video, I'll just stop. You can see I'm going to remove the main power from the controller. I'm not going to mess with the dual battery balancer or anything like that. I'm just going to separate the power from the controller, and then I'll hook it back up. And I'm going to remove the display and the pedal assist, and there's a few other wires, the motor wire. And it takes me a minute here. These plugs are sealed very nicely. We thought it maybe was an issue of, this controller having water in there, but we actually opened it up and come to find out it's got a whole, seal that was pushed in there, and it's extremely watertight. So, but yeah, like I was saying, extremely happy with this bike. Those 26x4 tires feel extremely comfortable riding around. I go over a pothole, you don't really feel it. You go over a bump, you don't really feel it. This bike just super smooth, handles extremely well. You can tell it's a really high quality, well-built bike. They're using D&M shocks. It's got a really nice pickup on the motor. I can go up hills, no problem. And yeah, just a super nice bike. It was bumming me out for a little while. It was giving me these issues, and I just didn't know what it was. And a lot of it's due to me riding it all year round. In fact, I just got this bike a couple months ago, but I've had other e-bikes, and the salt and the water, these bikes, I really don't like them in the super cold weather. They don't like them a whole lot. It's doable, it's possible. You can ride all winter, but you kind of got to expect things to kind of pop up, and you kind of deal with them when they happen. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. obviously another issue with riding in the winter is if you don't keep your chain lubed or cleaned, it's gonna rust pretty quickly. That salt just eats at things and makes it pretty bad. So where are we at? I believe I've got the controller removed at this point. You're going to notice it's extremely tight in that area, and these are 10 gauge wires. And so that makes them super thick as far as like the wiring that you would need. I guess from what I understand, this whole system could be run on 12 gauge, which would be a little thinner, but I think Wire just wanted to go overkill. But yeah, as you can see, I'm going to start putting this new controller in, and I've got to weave and wag and place all these wires a certain way, and it was pretty difficult getting them all in there and getting the original cover to sit back. But you'll see, I'm probably going to speed this up. You'll see me kind of deal with it. But yeah, pretty much all these wires are just plug and play. You'll notice that every wire has a male and a female end, and there's no there's no duplicate, so it's pretty easy to install. You just kind of match them up. And I believe I plugged in the yellow power. I believe that's an XJ90 cable, XT90. I believe I plugged that power cable in last. Not that it mattered because I don't have any batteries in there. It was one of the last ones. But yeah, you're going to see, I'm probably going to speed this up. You're going to see it took me quite a while to feed these in here correctly and make sure that motor cable was not too long, because you've got to zip tie it back up to the bike and you want it to look nice. So let's go ahead and let me fast forward. So as you're going to see, it took me, I don't know, a good 10-15 minutes trying to finagle all these wires into here. You got your battery balancer that goes down low, and you'll probably want to take a picture of how this is all set up if you've got a wired Cruiser yourself. So it would probably make it a little bit easier to get everything back in there. But yeah, you'll notice I get it all back in there, and then I just try to make that motor cable that's coming from the controller, I try to get it in there, pull some of the slack out of it, because you want it to kind of just barely make it to the motor cable that's coming from the motor. Then next is to put that cover on and then basically zip tie your cables. And then throw your batteries back in, and you'll be pretty much good to go from there. You can see it took us a little while. And with this cover plate, you'll notice it's probably best you don't tighten the screw all the way until you get all three of them in there, and then you just slowly tighten down each side. As you'll notice, if you just do one, it'll pop it out, and it will be quite a challenge to kind of get it all there. And just be careful when you're doing this, guys, that you don't pinch a wire inside between that plate, because sometimes they'll slip out. That's just got so little room in there. But yeah, I believe I'm going to go ahead and put one more bolt on the top of that, and then we'll be pretty much good to go. I will say, going back and forth, one of the reasons I got this bike is because I saw that they have, really good customer support as far as being able to call somebody up who speaks English and understands the bike. That was one of the big things that sold me on this company. And just the quality that they use, and you can just see they're a great company. So very impressed. Wired really took care of me throughout this whole issue to the best of their ability. You know, I actually called them up and did a continuity test, which was huge for me. And yeah, they did all this without, you know, asking for any sort of money. All they wanted was for me to buy, obviously, the controller. But yeah, super happy with this bike. Stay tuned for my honest review on this. That should be out, I would say, in the next month or two. Thanks for watching, guys.